Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to USVA SOL Review by Standard. Glad that you keep coming back. Really hoping these videos are helping you out. And without further ado, we're going to get right into our busy schedule today. So, with that being said, we're going to be looking at half of Standard 13 today, 13A and 13B. That is after World War II, post-war outcomes, and then the Cold War origins, so beginning that massive struggle called the Cold War. Alright, so here are those essential knowledge things that you need to know. Again, looking at this middle column here. Moving down to the next one, as we have lots and lots of stuff to get through today. Okay, the Vietnam War. That's going to be where we stop today. Alright, so let's get right into the post-war outcomes. So the end of World War II finds two different superpowers coming out. You have the Soviet Union occupying most of Eastern and Central Europe, and they have the eastern part of Germany. Germany is going to be split up into East and West Germany after the war. Again, having learned from what happened in World War I, we're going to move into a time where we really want to help out countries that have struggled in war to make sure that it doesn't happen again. We know that World War I, the Treaty of Versailles, caused World War II, so we're trying to get rid of that. So what happens is the East is going to be controlled by the communists in the Soviet Union. The West is going to be controlled by the British, the French, and the United States, obviously bringing them democracy. Japan is also going to be occupied, but just by American forces. It soon thereafter adopts democracy as their form of government, resumes self-government, and becomes a very strong ally of the United States. We sort of man up, for lack of a better term, shake hands, get our past behind us, and get right into the future. Europe is going to be destroyed. Much of Britain is destroyed, much of Germany is destroyed, much of the Soviet Union is destroyed, and lots of rebuilding needs to happen. However, one fear is that if whoever controls this rebuilding, whether it be the Soviet Union or a democratic Western country, that is where the form of government is going to go, and the spread of communism is an imminent threat for the West and freedom. The United Nations is going to be formed after World War II. We're going to learn from our mistakes with the League of Nations. We're actually going to have a security force, and this is going to be a much stronger thing, obviously still around today. Alright, so right into the origins of the Cold War. The collapse of the Soviet Union is going to be the end point of the Cold War, but the beginning is starting right there after World War II. It's between the United States and the Soviet Union, simply put. The United States and the Soviet Union represented starkly and immensely different fundamental values. On the United States side, they represent democracy, political freedom, all that kind of stuff. Soviet Union's totalitarian, communist, almost a socialist economic system. You know, there's never been a true communist state. Obviously, in a true communism, you would not have totalitarian government, but with modern-day communism, that is the only true form that we know of it as today. Right after World War II, President Truman comes out with his policy towards communism, and anything that can be done to stop communism, to contain communism, is going to be our guiding principle for the next 40 years. We're going to get involved in many conflicts around the world, to stop the spread of communism. We realize that we're not strong enough to completely get rid of it. That's their choice, but we do not want it to spread anywhere, especially to those poor countries that are being rebuilt all over Europe and Asia. So two organizations are going to come out of this. So we have the formation of NATO, which is a defensive alliance that encompasses the United States, Western European countries, and this is to prevent the Soviet invasion of Western Europe. Soviet allies in the eastern part of Europe is going to be called the Warsaw Pact, and both sides are going to have strong military forces. they never go at each other. They're just sort of formed just in case. Again, the meaning of Cold War is that there's no actual war being fought, but it's just a big who's going to be bigger and better and stronger. Shortly after the end of World War II, China is going to fall to communism, which is a massive blow to the Cold War for those democratic nations. Because there are so many people in China, they have such a high influence on international trade, everybody was extremely scared that their ideas were going to spread. Let's see here. President Nixon is going to be exploited under this. And rivalries between China and the United States have since calmed down, but were definitely heightened during the Cold War. After the Soviet Union matched the United States in nuclear weaponry, there's going to be this sort of imminent, mutually assured destruction sort of looming idea out there that if one were to attack the other, then both countries would be done and gone and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what keeps things at bay during the Cold War. However, it is a very scary time to be in, to have lived during that time period. Okay, one of those proxy wars, one of those wars that we get involved in to uphold our containment policy, is going to be the Korean War. That's what I just said. After North Korea invades South Korea, American forces are brought in to try and stop that spread even further. China is going to help from the north. They're going to come, obviously, geographically it makes sense for them to come to the aid of the north. And although the war threatens to widen, it eventually ends in a stalemate. Nobody gains any more territory, and they remain split up at the 38th parallel. Korea remains divided today. North Korea is still a communist nation. South Korea is a pseudo-democratic nation today. Much larger conflict, and definitely much more contested conflict, is the Vietnam War. American involvement reflects, again, our Cold War policy of containment. However, it is much less popular of a war, and a much more defeating war than Korea ever was. Starting in the late 50s and the early 60s, North Vietnam, after gaining its independence from France, goes to communist, and that scares some people. So the United States is eventually going to send troops to South Vietnam to try and train them in international relations and fighting and military and all that kind of stuff. And eventually those troops are going to begin fighting. John Kennedy sends many troops to Vietnam at the towards the end of his presidency, before being assassinated. And then President Lyndon Johnson is going to intensify those troops. It grows as the years in the 60s goes on, so do the combat forces in Vietnam. After Lyndon B. Johnson signs the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, essentially giving him a declaration of war, that is going to be ramped up, and we are going to be full out fighting with the North Vietnamese. We are at home in America. America is going to become divided over the issue. You have some saying that we need to contain communism, we need to stop the spread of communism, we need to do whatever we can to do that, people who want to fight in this war. Others are going to say, no, we are losing men, this has nothing to do with us, we're wasting so much money. It is going to be especially rampant in cities, and especially on college campuses all across the country. After the draft is instituted and college students don't have to go, but many of their friends do, they're going to start realizing, they're going to start protesting this very unpopular war. After Lyndon B. Johnson does not seek a second and a half term, President Nixon is elected, and he backs off a little bit, and he says, my policy of Vietnamization, the gradual pulling out of troops with South Vietnamese forces is going to be my plan. However, Vietnamization fails as we stay in the war for another 4 years, and we cannot outlast or outhold the North Vietnamese. We do pull our troops out, and eventually Vietnam goes to the communists. This is all, of course, before President Nixon is going to be forced out of office by the Watergate scandal, and then North and South Vietnam do come together, but under, like I said, under communist control. All right, one more confrontation to get through, and I have to do it sort of quickly here. So Cuba is going to be a very scary part in our history. Cuba is going to be become communist in the late 1950s after Fidel Castro leads an independence movement. We tried to overthrow Fidel Castro. Kennedy sends forces down to the Bay of Pigs in Cuba, and the overthrow failed completely, and we get ousted. We look like fools all across the world. 1962, however, President Kennedy orders the Soviets to remove missiles that they've now placed in Cuba. How did we know that, you ask? Of course, we had spy planes to check on all that for us, and luckily, through some tough language and diplomacy, President Kennedy is able to convince the Soviets to pull away their missiles that were pointed right at us, only 90 miles away off the coast. All right, that is it today. No review, kind of a lengthier video, so go back through, read what you need to again, and good luck to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for the next section of the Cold War. There's lots more to get through with the Cold War. Very intense, very sort of intricate topic that you need to get through. But lots and lots of stuff on the SOL is on this topic. Modern America is very heavy on that SOL. So make sure that you go through this video at least one more time and go through the next video one more time as well. All right, everybody, have a nice night.